Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Stacey Clarity joins us. We had a good visit with Sharon Versup in Segment 1. If you missed that, the replay will be on shortly. A couple of housekeeping issues. We want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, on the hill but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929. John Basham and the folks at Basham Rentals are already busy looking at 2016 and 17 rentals. And I know that John's been busy with that. Hilton Garden Inn and our friend Christy Kuntz, when tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight. And State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. He has not texted me every day to ask me about what the status of Biggie Swanigan is, but maybe every other day he has. But Trent very engaged with Boilermaker Sports, and we appreciate his support as well. All right, we are on to week number, for the Boilermakers, week number 8 of the football season. Correct, yes.
Yep.
1-6.
Seems like 25.
Sometimes it does now, and that no one's going to have pity for especially for the two. Well, I do to some extent because it is a long season, but it is, by the time we get to Friday and you've looked at this thing throughout the entire week and covered practice, and you're in the middle of a rough sled for the Boilermakers. I'm going to ask you, how tough is it to keep yourself mentally sharp, Stacey?
The bye week is very important for me.
Yeah.
It helped me get refocused and rested. That's actually my answer, not something they said that I'm just parroting.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's what we do. So I mean, it's just you just try to continue to tell the good stories and work really hard to find them sometimes when there's a struggle.
I got super conservative the last couple of weeks, but I plan on being real aggressive here down the stretch.
Well, we get from our esteemed readers. Thank you, Kyle.
That was good.
People ask us, does it matter if Purdue wins or loses, or do we care whether Purdue wins or loses? And that's not subject necessarily for disclosure, except for it does make a difference. I don't care who you are; it does make a difference if they win. We don't want Purdue to lose, partly because they're a lot more fun to cover from that standpoint.
Cheering for stories. I mean, more than anything,
absolutely.
I think is, and good stories to tell, and sometimes it's not sometimes. Every time, it's more difficult to find the good stories to tell when things have gone poorly and have gone poorly for an extended period of time.
Yeah,
it just is. And it's been sort of consistent here for a while, which makes the story feel the same week in and week out, which makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, from that standpoint. Anything else to add to that idea? Yeah,
I don't think people are going to be whining for us.
What?
I don't think people are going to
No,
be
it's fun. It's a
Isn't that what we were told?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a privilege to do our job.
Well, and I say that there's I look at it that way in terms of it's a privilege to have work of any kind at this point in time. So anyway, looking ahead to Nebraska, the team that is coming in, and when Nebraska came into the Big Ten, you had the dreams. If you were somebody that was trying to build revenue at Ross-Ade Stadium, that the Cornhuskers would bring their 30,000 fans, and you would have a full stadium. That will not be the case tomorrow, and partly because Nebraska too is going through a rough patch at a 3-4 record right now, and the ability for the Cornhuskers to be healthy enough, and they've got a lot to play for tomorrow as well, because they still have a legitimate chance at a bowl, though so does Purdue actually.
You're asking me about
I'm
Nebraska.
asking a question. Nebraska, what do you think?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Riker Fife, though.
Yeah.
When we get to see Riker Fife, I don't know.
Excited
Other
about
than
that.
his name, I like his name, sort of. I don't know what to expect from him really either. They've lost the 5 games by 13 total points. But we talked to John Niatalo, who works for the Omaha World Herald, and the guy who used to be around here a little bit when he was a student. And I don't think he feels like really they're all that close really to winning some of those games. They just can't make some plays. But all that said, I mean, they're going to come in a touchdown favorite to Purdue. I just don't know what to expect from Purdue. We really don't, which is a crazy thing to say in a lot of ways for week 8 or whatever this is, that we can't figure Purdue out. Just can't, especially in offense. I don't know. I have a little bit of an idea what they're going to do, but it's so vastly different from what they did 2 weeks ago. It's like there's no consistent thread there.
Yeah.
Other than the personnel. That's about it.
What we talked about on the pregame show today was, and the reason I say I have no idea about Nebraska, I feel like it doesn't matter in relation to Purdue. I mean, Nebraska's without a starting quarterback, its leading tackler, its number 3 receiver, and a starting cornerback, and maybe other guys that, I'm not sure. it doesn't matter. I mean, Purdue has played Minnesota when Minnesota was without 11 or 12 guys on its too deep and got smoked. Like, this to me isn't about the opponent. It's about whether Purdue can learn how to win and do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't give Purdue a benefit of the doubt. It has done absolutely nothing this season to show you that it should win a game that it should win. And so that's why I say like that. You know, like, I don't care. I don't care what Nebraska is going to do. It needs to be about Purdue, and Purdue needs to figure this out now because, you know, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Darrell Hazel, you know, after the season or the rest of that coaching staff. And, I mean, they still have 5 games. They got to get something figured out, you know, these last 5 weeks to prove to not just the fan base, but, I mean, to people who make the decisions on whether they're staying or not,
Yeah.
you know, that there's reason to keep them here.
Yeah, how many times have we said here, you know, Stacy and I talked about this too, that said Purdue's got a chance this weekend, Marshall, Virginia Tech with their backup quarterback, Bowling Green, Minnesota certainly, we all felt that Purdue, but we all, especially after the first scoring drive, we all felt not only Purdue was going to win that game, but Purdue was going to blow them out.
Yeah.
And you know, every time that we think that that's a possibility, it turns out to not be so.
Right. The only game I didn't think they had a chance in, they had one of their best chances, Michigan State. So in some ways, at least they had the ball down in the last with a chance to win the game. No, in the final 5 games. I mean, obviously Iowa and Northwestern are 2 upper level teams, at least at this point in the West Division. But you look at the 3 home games, and you have chances to win on paper to win all 3. But it's such an on-paper thing until
Yeah.
the Boilermakers show that they
Right.
really are making that positive step, that they really are competitive, contrary to some of the things we hear from time to time. They really, even so those, I know it was 10-7 with 1 play left in the third quarter against Wisconsin, but it might, as we've said 100 times now, it might as well have been 100-0. And in terms of the way that Purdue's ability to score, unless Leroy Clark was going to get another near pick 6. So that's
The
just
yardage was 370 to 60.
yeah, and that's
With 1 play to
problematic.
go at the end of the third quarter.
Problematic.
370 to 60.
Rain tomorrow, which would now the Amber has changed her forecast from early this morning when I was on the show with her that they now she thinks it may rain earlier in the day, maybe up through the morning, up through the first half of the football game. Something to talk about, but what does that mean? Purdue will try to run the football, but you're not so sure.
Purdue will try to run the football, yeah, but I don't, again, you know, I think that the game plan is, like Kyle said, is going to be different. Certainly different than the Wisconsin game plan, because that was just, I don't know what that was. But I don't think, we just don't want to say too much, obviously,
Yeah.
but
We see things during practice.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
No, I totally understand.
right.
Totally understand.
I think that,
difficult balance.
right. Purdue practiced outside on purpose, you know. I mean, they went inside Tuesday, and, you know, Darrell Hazel said they wanted to have a crisp practice, but then they were outside because that's the whole point, right? You want to get
Yeah.
used to the elements. It was windy, it was rainy, you know, on Wednesday, and I think that is not going to stop Purdue from trying to throw the ball. I guess I'll say it like that. They still are talking about wanting to throw the ball downfield, which is something that David Blau did not do, obviously, against Wisconsin, but had done in his first 2 Big Ten games. He didn't connect on a lot of them, but he tried. You know, they tried to push it. So I would suspect a game plan more similar to what they did a couple weeks ago than the Wisconsin game.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We'll talk to you all
we
about
can
it after the
start to the hand signaling side of this before long. In
A
terms
better
of,
question for us might be: Do we think it will work?
Okay. Do you think it'll work?
Go
They
ahead.
didn't look very sharp executing it on Tuesday or Wednesday, the times we were out there. They just don't look very sharp on offense,
Yeah.
which is, you know, tough for this time of year again. I mean, you just feel like, you know, they go through training camp and they have some issues on offense, but there, you know, were signs even when they were having those issues that, you know, maybe they'd be able to do some things, get the ball down the field a little bit, maybe run a little bit better than we thought. I still had concerns back then about, you know, sort of their 2-minute offense. We thought they were going to use this very tempo offense, and maybe that would be a little bit more effective. But, man, we just have got through the season, and there's
Yeah,
there's a lot of
reasons for that.
There's
but yeah.
a lot of I don't know if dysfunction is the right word, because that makes it sound like there's just absolute no organization at all. But they just are struggling with some things offensively. It feels like right now that I don't know if suddenly going to be cleaned up by Saturday.
Yeah, and again, Nebraska and Mike Riley. I know he just watching his press conference from yesterday. You talk about their list of injuries. Well, Purdue has a substantial list as well, and key players. Obviously, Juwan Bentley, and he had surgery recently, and Jimmy Herman. Defensively, this is a problem still of being able to. If Nebraska in a mutter type game tomorrow has to run the football, which one would think it will, that could cause some. Maybe the Purdue defensive line has to play as well as it did at times against Wisconsin.
Right, and that's the only time really against a relatively good rushing team we've seen Purdue respond.
Yeah.
So to me, it's one game that you did it.
Yeah. Better make it two.
Gotta do it again. I mean,
Evan
you do
Panfil,
it once, it's great. But one time doesn't do anything for you. You gotta make it a consistent thing. You have to grow then. I mean, Daryl Hazel talked all week, and Kyle talked to Evan Panfil, but that those three, defensive linemen that are juniors now, Raplogle, Panfil, and Howard, played maybe the best games of their career last week, and that's great. I mean, they should be, rising and playing consistently, but that's the thing, they're not. So one game is great, and it was really important for these guys, but now that needs to be their standard now. And if it is, Purdue can feel pretty good about that defensive front, at least at a couple spots, in the last 5 games and then going into next season. But it can't be one game, it has to be a progression for these guys.
The game before, Minnesota rushed for more than 300
Right.
yards against those same players. So, and there was no threat that Minnesota was going to throw the ball in that game, and Purdue couldn't come up to stop the run. So, yeah, it's hard, like Stacy said, to sit here and say, oh yeah, the defense really turned a corner last week. I mean, we gotta see it at least this week, and maybe for another 2 or 3 weeks before you can really say, yeah, those juniors, are starting to get it now.
And again, you have a new Nebraska quarterback who's thrown the ball 7 times all in one game this year. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see, because you got to think Mike Riley's crew is desperate for a win, and the way that they've lost so many games. I was reading their game notes that no team since 2006 had lost that many games in the last minute. I mean, it's been amazing how the Huskers have not been able to seal the deal, and that will you see an angry Nebraska team? That will be another challenge for Purdue. You look back.
Purdue should be angry.
Purdue
Can I interrupt
should be
you and say
angry.
Purdue should be angry?
And
They're 1-6.
yeah, and it's been a.
Are we talking
both
about
wanted
angry
that.
teams right now?
What?
I mean, why should Nebraska be more angry than Purdue?
We've sort of both wanted to see that out of Purdue too.
Yeah.
I think that just someone to stand up and say,
No more.
No more. This, whether it be the head guy or one of the captains or anybody else, stand up and say we're not going to take this anymore.
But is that I mean, we don't necessarily see that. We're not seeing it on the sideline. So that's, and maybe, and your guys are at practice every day. Is that where you're not seeing it, or are you just saying you would love to see a more demonstrative expression on the sidelines?
No, we want them to say it. We want them to verbalize it to us so everybody knows. Right? I mean, that's what I want. I mean, and it's fun. I don't know if it's funny, but it's interesting. I talked to Jared Parker, Marcus Freeman, and Jafar Williams in the last couple weeks, 3 assistant coaches, and they were as adamant about how this is not okay as anybody has been all season. Good for them. You know what I mean? Obviously, they, you can debate whether how much power they have for real overall change here. They're just dealing with their small position groups. They're not coordinators. They're not the head coach, obviously. But they're like, this isn't right, and we're going to do everything we can in our power to get our guys to play better, And, I wrote about that in the site this week, and that's what I want to hear from, and I think Danny Anthrop maybe more than any other captain, and a little bit Frankie Williams, when we get them in a game, after a game, and, Minnesota, for example, and they just got smoked, and we're, like, shocked, and Kyle asked Robert Kugler, are you shell-shocked? We're shell-shocked. No, yeah, we're upset. But it's like, no, we want you to be upset.
Yeah.
Because
And
and they don't need to be for themselves, but I think just for, the outside looking in, I think it would almost make you feel kind of better if they're just like, this is driving me crazy.
Yeah. A question from Andrew, from our friend from Florida, talking about Elijah Sindelar. Is it setting up perfectly for him to come in? And just talk about what you've seen from his, which I don't know how much you've seen in terms of watching him in scout, et cetera. But
not enough to evaluate, in my opinion. I can't sit here and we don't want to put words in Stacy's mouth. I'll let her answer too. But I can't sit here and say, well, when next year when Elijah gets in there, all this changes. Maybe. If he even gets in there next year, but I don't have. There's not enough evidence for me to say, yeah, this guy really gets it. I mean, he can throw the ball.
Yeah.
He's also a freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question specifically says save the day.
Yeah.
No. But again, he's been running, for the most part, primarily running the scout team offense this year, which does not give him an opportunity to run Purdue's offense. He is no longer the scout team quarterback since Purdue had that kind of weird backup quarterback situation with Appleby and everything, but he's still not getting very many reps in practice, being the number 3 guy, but not being the scout team guy. It'd almost be better for him to be the scout team quarterback, so then he can actually throw the ball in practice. I think he's a very intelligent guy, though. I mean, you said you don't know if he gets it, and obviously we don't have evidence for that. I think that's what you mean by that, but I think there's no question that he is a very intelligent guy. He has his football IQ, just in conversations with him, is really high. I mean, he's the character that you want for a quarterback. He's the leader that you want for a quarterback. I mean, in terms of intangibles, I have no question about Sindelar. We just need to see in a real situation, ability-wise, what he can be.
I don't have many questions intangibly wise about the other 2 guys, though, really, either.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them, Blau and Appleby, both seem like good leaders. They seem like guys that their teammates are willing to follow and produced.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Any chance that we've had this conversation somewhat rhetorical in nature, but any chance we do see Appleby in the third quarter or second quarter, third quarter, if things do not go well for number 11 tomorrow?
I can't decide which would surprise me more.
Yeah.
If he plays I mean, I guess, if he plays would surprise me more. The only thing that would surprise me more than that is if he decided to play both of them. I guess.
Yeah, that would surprise me more.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in, I think, public forums. I don't recall exactly what we say and then what we actually say in front of people-ish. I think that it would be difficult for John Shoup and Darrell Hazel to go back to Appleby, because I think that would signal that they made a mistake and made a move too early. Potentially would signal that, and I don't know if they would do that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, I guess.
Yeah. You also have to win the game.
Yeah, you got to win the game.
To me, I've wondered about quarterback decisions a few times when I felt like there's the possibility that you could go out and win the game, and maybe a way to go out and win the game would be to switch the quarterback.
And we don't know how the situation is going to present itself.
Right,
tomorrow,
whether that's in the second quarter, third quarter, last drive of the game, I don't know, but they haven't done so before, so I don't think they would do so now.
One thing we have consensus on, the object is to win the game. That we've established. You need to score more, and somehow Purdue needs to get that done tomorrow if you're going to try to save any part of the season. And it seems, I wouldn't have bet early on that this game would be as quote unquote winnable as it might appear. But every time we've thought the games were going to be close, they haven't been. So that's
You're picking Purdue then.
No, I did pick Nebraska. I did pick Nebraska, but I have been wrong just about every week. So I did pick Nebraska 28-20. Did you?
I also picked Nebraska, but can I ask you, why do you think the game is winnable for Purdue?
I do think that Nebraska's current state gives you some opportunity. If Purdue gets a couple breaks early on, things can change, and then I think the weather could play into it. But
Nebraska's playing in the weather too.
I understand. I think any
No,
game's
I just mean that was like an argument that I've had, like against the Michigan State game. Connor Cook threw for 300 yards or whatever, and it's like, well,
I think
so Michigan State played in the same.
I think Nebraska is the only thing, the chance it gives Purdue's Nebraska is in a tough spot to their season's going to go one way or the other. Purdue's right now has gone one way, and that may psychologically give you a chance, but. Right now, I'll be very honest. I think it's until Purdue shows me that there's a pulse really going on in the third and fourth quarter. I don't. That's why I'm picking Nebraska to win tomorrow. So. And it's
Yeah, no chance for Purdue, huh, Stacy?
I don't have no chance. I just, again, have been burned personally when I picked them so many times that I'm no longer going to do it.
yeah.
And I
Kyle,
stink in media
and then
anyway,
we're about ready to
so-
take a break here, but
I got similar score to you again this week. I had Nebraska 27-20. Had a 34-20, but the change in quarterback, I brought it down.
I think that could be a big factor as
Brought
well.
it down a little bit. I don't know what to expect from Fife. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't have any real words of
You
wisdom.
feel strongly
here.
both ways.
I feel
Okay.
strongly about nothing. I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna bring in somebody that at least will tell us something he does know. Not that you guys didn't. We're not gonna bash you here, but Brian Newbert will join us for segment 3. We'll talk a little bit of little recruiting, little hoops, a lot of hoops, as the Boilermakers have a secret scrimmage. The men's team does on Sunday, and we'll hit that, and also leading into the exhibition game the following week as well. So. Take a 2-minute break, take a breather. We've thrown a lot at you here in the first 40 minutes. You have to digest it all and then come back ready to go. You can send us questions too. And we're going to have a special offer for you, an internet offer that you have to be ready for here in the next segment. So stay tuned. We'll see you in a couple minutes on Golden Black Live.